You're listening to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong.
Welcome to episode 154 to Let Me Tell You Why You're Wrong podcast. I'm Dave Roberts. With me, as always, is writer, journalist, TV personality, Jessica Szilagyi.
Hey.
How was your week?
It was wonderful. How was your week?
Busy.
Busy?
Yeah, I actually had to do some work on top of the mountain, about 30 minutes out of Jasper. Everything's 30 minutes away from this place. Of course, it took 3 trips to Home Depot, which is an hour round trip every time. And the temperature dropped. It was drizzling in the morning. Then the sun came out. It was the most beautiful day you've ever seen. And an hour later, it just opened up. So it was 40 degrees and dumping rain. It was still better than sitting and watching the news.
I bet. The news is depressing. I enjoy writing it. It's just great.
Well, you know, with your writing, you get a chance to at least share your frustration because misery loves company.
Oh, yeah. That's super healthy, too.
Like an addict going, go ahead, take it. Hey,
Right.
go ahead. It's just a little snort. Go ahead. Be fine. So, Jessica, you have 2 big announcements.
I suppose I do. Which one do you want to hear first?
Well, let's have the new news source first.
Okay. So I'm about to... Well, by the time this drops, there'll be a new news source in town, I suppose, in the state. It's called the Georgia Virtue. It's something that I started, kind of branched off on my own with same folks that I was working with before, of course, Eric and some others. So it's going to be the same, objective, fact-based reporting, legislative coverage, local government, court matters, law enforcement, accountability, all that fun stuff that is super uplifting that we were just talking about. Thanks for that. That was a great intro, Dave, on this episode, as I'm trying to start a new venture. But it's the georgiavirtue.com. It's not like before where, there were all these county-based, approaches to how you can find it. There's still Bullock, and then the state is divided into north and south. So, but if you go to the georgiavirtue.com, Georgia spelled out, you can navigate around and see what you think.
How could I share it with my friends?
Share it with your friends.
If I could tee it up for you, are you on Facebook?
Yes, we're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Right now, there's the Georgia Virtue Facebook page, the Georgia Virtue Bullock, and the Georgia Virtue South. So you can go to any of those pages and invite your friends, or you can share the page. I would appreciate anybody who does that at this point. But, based on wherever you are, you can find the corresponding page. So
it's the great content that we've been accustomed to with your writing and a lot of the other writers that you've worked with over the last few years. It's just going to have a new name. Congratulations!
Thanks. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's working for yourself and starting a new company is petrifying and exciting at the same time.
That's kind of how I feel.
It's sort of the feeling if you ever played roulette when they drop the ball and it starts going around. You're like, okay, you're both petrified of losing and excited at the possibility of winning.
Yes.
But with your brand of writing, you've got way better odds than a drop of the roulette ball.
Well, and the dogs and myself will be on your doorstep for Connie and you to take in if it doesn't work out. So please read. Please read, everybody.
Well, she might take in Stanley Eugene because
anybody would take in Stanley Eugene.
Well, he's a published author.
He is a published author. That came out last week. Stanley Eugene has a book called Joy is a Boomerang, and it's just a cheerful, positive, non-political story about basically strong-arming your way into a household and winning over an entire family, being me, Shady, and Stella, by spreading joy and just being cheerful. And, what you put out into the universe is what you get back. So totally not in line with anything else that I do professionally, but it was a fun little side project. And that's something you can order. You can order it on Amazon. You can order it from my website. You can message our page and I can send you the link, or however you want to, if you're interested in getting it. But all the proceeds will be donated to locally based organizations that help other stray animals in need, be it for homelessness or feeding them or spaying and neutering, all that fun stuff. So,
well, we are going to order a copy for our nephews who are 7.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a kid's book.
Well,
but it's appropriate for children.
Right. It's kid friendly, but it's not labeled a children's book because it does mention, that he had to have an alteration at one point, which would be obviously the snipping of his
pant leg. You had him hemmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure that's a really good thing for saying it's not a kid's book, because they have kids' books dedicated to dealing with parents with cancer and everything else. It's kind of a fact of life. And not only is it a fact of life, it's responsible pet ownership, especially when you own a mixed breed, that there's no good reason to have him bred.
Right. No, I mean, and like I said, this was kind of like a learning experience for me in terms of doing the whole publishing thing and estimating costs and how the whole process works. And so there's a lot more hurdles to jump through if you want it classified as a children's book. And this is, even if I did more Stanley Eugene type books, I'm not targeting an audience of children or trying to be in that category. And none of the other things that I have in the works are children oriented. So I just kind of bypassed that and went with the traditional.
He's the 4-legged Tony Robbins.
Yeah, he's gonna pay his way though. That's how it's gonna work? Not on this one. This one he's donating because he's learning. But in the future, I'm gonna totally expect him. But it'd be nice if you could use your connections to get him on some, I don't know, like radio shows, TV shows, have him do a couple appearances.
You are my connection.
Such crap.
But yeah, we should definitely put a link to it on this page when the show drops. That and the Georgia Virtue. Talk about being polar opposites.
Yes.
The duality of the human existence.
Yes, the very worst and the very best. Politicians and dogs.
Only one of those can be loyal.
Correct.
So, getting into the show, Gamestop a stock shorting issue. That's a stop stock shorting. Thanks, Jessica.
Gamestop stock shorting.
As if I don't have enough problems tripping over my own tongue.
What?
Companies like Citron Research and Melvin Capital placed bets that GameStop shares would fall in a practice called short selling. This was quite the debacle last week. I think it was Wednesday that this all happened.
It dominated all the headlines.
Well, and it should. Now I've got where I was Wednesday on top of the mountain. The guy I was talking to is a friend of mine. Lost huge on that because TD Ameritrade shut down trading. This wasn't a breaker that tripped. This wasn't the SEC shutting anything down.
Mm-hmm.
First thing that happened was TD Ameritrade's system went down because of high volume of trading. Well, if you're gonna market yourself to people who buy penny stocks and things like that, you can't shut them down on days with heavy trading. The wait to get a hold of a representative to trade was 4 hours, and that's more than half the trading day. To sit on hold, waiting to talk to somebody to make a trade. Meanwhile, prices are shifting.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in something like this, the prices are shifting second by second. And then by the time he got a hold of somebody, they said, well, we've have internally stopped trading on GameStop and AMC. And he was losing his mind. I mean, he took a 6-figure loss on it.
Holy
or not,
crap.
not a certain loss, but loss of potential profit.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, we can't take your word on where you would have sold. So he is furious with Ameritrade. And he falls in line with a lot of people where you've got more than you really need for Robinhood, but not enough to have Chuck Schwab managing your stuff with the liquidity level. And obviously the larger firms charge more per trade. And if you're doing day trading, you may have 100 trades in a day. And that starts adding up when the trade is 10 times more per transaction than it is with a place like TD Ameritrade. But when it costs you, $200,000-$300,000 because they just can't handle the volume or just will shut you down, it's not really useful. The per transaction fee becomes a lot less important.
Right.
So the genesis of this were several trading groups on social media, one being Reddit. There obviously more on Twitter and on Facebook. The Robinhood traders, I can't remember exactly what the name is, on Facebook was shut down. Facebook shut down for violation of rules, saying there was some sexual content on it, which everybody's like, it's a trading site. And if one person posts something that's inappropriate, you delete it. You don't shut the whole page down.
That's right.
So of course this is billionaires taking care of billionaires. And there's some hedge fund managers that really, got beat up by this trying to short a stock that was shooting through the roof.
Well, the commentary that I saw was that people were saying they're just mad because, the little guys beat them at their own game.
Well, it's true. Hedge funds have been pumping and dumping for a long time. But see, when they do it in private. They do it behind closed doors. They sit down and they decide what penny stock are we going to pump up. And a lot of this has been regulated out. But these guys have been doing it for years because a mutual fund or a hedge fund has so much capital, so they can take a small company, inflate the price 100 times, then dump the stock. And who gets screwed when that happens? It's usually the little guy. The little guy that sees that stock coming up and going, hey, the big guys are making a move. Let me hop in there with them. And they get crushed. It's like trying to take on a dump truck with a Prius. They have so much more volume, and when they decide to dump it, they crush a lot of people and crush people's retirement. But what was happening here was everything was done in the open. The Reddit groups they were all open. The Facebook groups were all open. So it's not like they were sitting in some smoke-filled boardroom deciding this is what we're going to do with GameStop. It was all out. So any investor had that information in front of them, that this is what everybody's planning on doing.
Mm-hmm.
So with that information out in public, it's not insider, it's not collusion, because it's out in front of everybody. Collusion is what happens when these hedge funds and these mutual funds sit behind closed doors and they have secret meetings and they have everybody sign an NDA and go and manipulate the market. All that's all well and good. But when the little guys try to do it, the billionaires start getting upset. And look, this isn't class envy. I don't mind money managers making money, as they should. They're very smart. They're very well educated, and a lot of them make a very good living doing it, managing other people's money and making money for people. And my friend's point when he finally got a hold of someone in Ameritrade is, the days that I lose money, oh, you guys have no problem. I stand to make a very good profit on one day, and all of a sudden we need to protect our investors. It's like, you a-hole, I am an investor.
Right.
So yeah, a lot of people are fairly sideways about that. Sorry, Jessica, to dominate it. I just have a little personal experience with it. Luckily,
no.
I was getting rained on top of the mountain, and I didn't even have time. I didn't see any of the Reddit stuff. I didn't get involved in it. I had such a busy week of earning money the old-fashioned way that I really wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to it and I just happened to see something on Facebook as I was leaving the house, and then I was talking to him about it. He's like, "No, this is what happened. This is what they're getting me on." But apparently, it caused hell to freeze over.
Yeah.
AOC and Ted Cruz agree about congressional hearings. Except AOC put something out on Twitter that she would work with any Republican but Ted Cruz because he wanted to have her murdered.
Do you think congressional hearings or congressional involvement should be a thing here?
It never ends well. But I don't know about congressional. It needs to be found out if these companies violated SEC regulations, fair trade regulations, by shutting it down.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's their platform. But this is not tripping a breaker. This is not a fail-safe. This was independent traders like Robinhood, and Robinhood is taking, so to speak, slings and arrows for shutting it down because Robinhood advertises to the little guys that you don't have to have a large portfolio to start with Robinhood. You can start investing with fractions of a dollar. And shave a little off and of your paycheck every week and have it go into an investment account and start owning stocks. That was Robinhood's whole thing. And then they shut people down because they had the potential of making money. And what it comes down to is these owners of these sites like Ameritrade and Robinhood are worried about hurting the big guys. Because these are the guys not only do they socialize with, but they make money with each other. And no one's been more vocal than the guy that owns Barstool Sports. He was losing his mind, justifiably so. And by all accounts, he's a good dude. He has a charity where they're donating tons of money, millions and millions of dollars to small independent, I won't say small, but independent restaurants that have been shut down. And helping them survive and try to make it through until they can open their doors again and keeping their people paid. I mean, his philanthropic efforts in the hospitality industry have been outstanding.
I understand everything that you're saying and everything you said and why. It's just we so often see the wrong result. Like government doesn't. Everyone wants the information, everyone should get the information, but it doesn't seem to yield the result that we want, if any result at all. So
Yeah, I don't know what regulation that comes out of this debacle that's going to help anything. So you're going to tell, I don't know. First of all, Zuckerberg can kiss my ass. The him shutting down, I'd say him, but his people shutting down conversations among traders and then quoting some rule that they swear they didn't violate. This is not the first time that this Robinhood trading group, this group I don't think is actually associated with Robinhood. The group is based on people who are sharing their experiences and what they are finding works for them in investment strategies with Robinhood. And the concept is a good one, right up until the point where you can turn 1,000 into 100,000, and you start counting your chickens before they're hatched, and go to sell, and they go, we're not letting that happen today.
Right. It's crazy.
It is, and I don't know what the answer is.
Mm-hmm.
Giving the SEC more power probably is not the answer.
No.
But
That's
here's the
never
thing.
served us well.
Yeah, and you don't know there's a problem, or that this is the policy of the folks that hold your investments until it happens.
Well, that's true, because nobody reads that print.
Only you, Jessica.
Well, at the bank, I did.
Only you is like, hey, what is this about home equities in Texas? Which your banker's a lot nicer than I would have been. Like, are we in Texas? Does that look like Houston out there? Don't worry about it.
He told me to read the document he put in front of me and to ask questions. So I did. Probably first time I've ever listened to somebody when they said to do something, but that's okay.
Don't tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a continued colossal meltdown of attorney Lin Wood.
Yeah, I know we don't have too much time to spend on this, and he's not worthy of it, but it's one of those things where, I mean, you can't stop. He can't stop making headlines, and I can't stop wondering, like, when is this going to stop? When is he going to chill?
Well, that's where you tell somebody, just don't be you for a while.
Well, so I have not confirmed this as of the time we recorded, so I'm just going off of something he tweeted, but then some reputable news entities, or, like reporters from news entities, retweeted it. So that's how it got my attention, because but he said on Thursday that the State Bar of Georgia told him they're demanding a mental health exam from him if he wants to keep his law license, which, is well within their, I guess, purview to do if they so wish. But he wrote this long, it looks like I don't know if he put it on Telegram or what, but it's the tweet was screenshots of his long message talking about how he's fighting battles on every front, and he speaks the truth, and his mind is sound. He wants to keep his law license, and he's not broken any rules. And he asked what he did wrong, and they told him that it was his social media comments. But, that's certainly not the extent of it, because he's been in the headlines for everything lately.
Well, we know somebody else who lost his law license because he's bat guano crazy, Chris Severe.
I know! That's what I was thinking.
So maybe those two can team up. Good God.
Can you imagine?
I mean, And look, both of them are intelligent people, but yeah, I think Lin Wood's cheese slid off his cracker. He's been fired by Nick Sandman.
A teenager.
Yeah, a teenager
a teenager who thought you were doing something just not cool.
Well, and Nick was pretty gracious about it. Hey, thanks for your help, but yeah, we're not going to do business anymore. And I'm sure it feels, especially if you already have some paranoid delusions and your grasp on reality is less than solid. It feels like everybody in the world's abandoned you, everybody's against you, and of course that doesn't help any paranoid delusions that you think everybody's out to get you. There were calls from Mercer Law to remove his name from the courtroom, which prompted him to say he wanted his donation back. Mercer's Walter F. George School of Law named a courtroom after him when he pledged $1 million over a 10-year period in 2016.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that. I mean,
well,
did you donate because you want your name on the courtroom, or obviously, probably, and that's fine, but I just.
Yeah, I don't know. Of course, he called Mercer students brainwashed. And then he hasn't ruled out suing them. Suing them.
Well, and this all came to light, like, in a big way when he kind of I guess, took the reins after the election, but his former law partners were already kind of going against him before that. Three of them filed a lawsuit against him and said that his behavior was erratic, and he had claimed that he was being directed by God Almighty, and that he'd had incoherent phone calls, text messages, and emails in the middle of the night, and that all had become the norm. So, and I'm not saying that. So I'm not speaking to.
Was he being spoken to by the burning brief?
I'm not sure, but I can't get on board with. I've never been able to get on board with him. I've never. His lawsuits have always, or I shouldn't say always, but they have, in recent months and years, even aside from the election, been seemingly frivolous. But it seems like at some point he would just want to stop having the negative publicity about himself. Like, just take a little time and regroup.
Well, he doesn't want that moment of clarity. Look, what he did for Sandman was great. That kid was being railroaded by the press. He didn't do anything wrong. This, of course, is the kid that had the fake Vietnam veteran Native American guy chanting in his face while he just didn't move. And we talked about the story. But that's who Nick Sandman is. And, of course, he was just filleted by the press. And Lin Wood came to his defense. Hey, great. Even a stopped clock is right twice a day. Mm-hmm. And there are a bunch of young people looking at their iPhones going, well, if it's stopped, it's just off.
Yeah. Bless them.
But yeah, when you start saying you're directed by God Almighty, I guess I start taking a big grain of salt with anything that you have to say. So the Medical Center of Elberton has lost its ability to administer a vaccine to anyone after it inoculated ineligible persons, teachers, bus drivers, cafeteria workers. They have a 6-month suspension.
Isn't this a story? Like, people are shocked that the same government that used our tax dollars to incentivize companies and to pay them to be finished early to develop a vaccine, and the same government who picked how many people get the vaccine and when and who has priority, and they said it was free quotes, and they have the monopoly over the vaccine. People are upset because the government's making rules about and punishing people for not following their rules. I mean, pull your head out of this isn't news.
Man, the current phase only allows healthcare workers, staff, and residents at long-term facilities, residents older than 65, and law enforcement to get vaccinated.
There's a lot of people who don't agree with that. And there's a lot of people who think teachers are frontline workers and essential and all this other stuff. And it's the only key to having kids back in the classroom, this, that, and the other. All that's kind of irrelevant, because if you were one of these people that sat there and said, the government should do something, the government should get us a vaccine, the government, this is what happens when you ask the government to do something. Like, why are you complaining? So you wanted them to make a vaccine and you're not in the group. You're a have-not this time. Sit down. You wanted them to do this.
Right. Absolutely. I've said before in the show, government is the anti-Midas touch. Everything turns to crap.
Yep.
So you're not supposed to be able to buy your way into this. You're not supposed to be able to do any of that. Now, whether or not teachers are frontline workers, I would not put them in that group. There are a lot of people I'd put ahead of them. Other first responders, obviously. Your paramedics, and I don't know if those are considered healthcare workers, but your fire department, your jail workers, people that have high amounts of contact with people, even to transportation. I think bus drivers is a pretty good example. A guy who works at MARTA and has to, and I don't know how many people are taking MARTA right now, but walk up and down the buses, or walk up and down the trains, or the platforms and all that stuff. But yeah, you're right. This is what happens when you allow bureaucrats to make decisions.
Yeah, it doesn't matter who you think is most important. You asked for this, so here you go.
And look, every special interest group is lobbying to be in the next group. Huh? And that sounds repetitive and redundant, but
no.
I know the ACCA, the Air Conditioning Contractors of America, is trying to put HVAC techs at the front. So are plumbers, so are electricians, lawyers. Everybody, every special interest group is trying to push their people to the front of the line. And of course, we got this a couple weeks ago. We got the story out of Florida that they are putting a lid on vaccine tourists, because Florida's been pretty effective getting their vaccine out. They have a very large elderly population because that's where everybody in New York goes to retire. But people who are in other areas were traveling to Florida to get it. Now they're requiring a Florida driver's license or utility bills, proof that at least you're a part-time resident of Florida. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of people who winter in Florida, will own a house in West Palm and own a house in New York or something like that. And those people are eligible by Florida law, but DeSantis put his foot down on it. But to your point is, it wasn't the state dollars that came up with the vaccine. It was the federal dollars, and everybody here paid for it.
But I mean, in their defense, the federal government is allocating vaccines to the states based on the population that's there. I mean, it's just complicated. It's just why government doing it is such a terrible idea.
How many other options do you have if you're in Elberton?
5. Well, 4, excuse me, with the hospital. That was another thing. Everyone's like, one of the hospital administrators, this is her quote to the AJC, "I'm pretty pissed about it because we are a tight-knit community. Our community is relying on us to vaccinate them, and our state has decided during a pandemic to suspend our privileges." Well, first of all, that's the whole thing about a privilege is it's not a right, and someone can take it from you, especially when the government gives it to you. But there were 5 facilities in the county that is authorized to administer the vaccines. It's not like these people can't get it other places, and the hospital is trying to cry foul and say, like, oh my gosh, they're damaging the community. There's 4 other places. Like, I understand that a hospital is large and has a lot of staff, but you know what? They rolled out the tiers of who was going to be in what, which category back in November. So it's not like this was just sprung on you and you started administering vaccines and then they're like, oh, no teachers, and everyone had to back up. Like, this was deliberate.
How much does the hospital get paid? And you probably don't know off the top of your head, but I assume the hospital gets paid from the Fed and from the state per vaccination they perform.
I don't know if they get that, but they've had windfall CARES Act in the form of direct cash payments since April of last year, so I'm not really feeling too bad for them. They get that no matter what.
And of course, everybody's playing the victim game. And I'm talking about every different group. The teachers saying, no, we're more at risk. We're the victims. And the bus drivers, no, we're the ones who are at risk. We're the victims. Restaurant workers, no, we see hundreds of people a day, and we handle their dirty plates and silverware. We're higher risk. Just good God, man. You're right. It is the debacle that only government can create.
Mm-hmm. And yet they can still leave you shocked that it happened that way. Like, that's the thing about government. It's so bad that after everything, they can still leave you surprised that that's how bad it actually is.
Shocking.
It's a talent.
This is a really good time to say these are our opinions and not those of anyone not offering commentary on this show. This very show. So, this week in the Georgia legislature.
Well, David Clark.
Last week.
You only have to read it. It's fine.
3rd. 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 Early in the week, State Rep David Clark was removed from the House floor for refusing his COVID test. He was escorted out by Capitol law enforcement.
He didn't. I guess they're getting tested twice a week, which, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether that's effective or if it's going to stop the spread or whatever, or if it's just for optics, I don't even know. But they're getting tested twice a week right now. And he didn't want to get tested.
Well, old friend of the show, David Ralston, told fellow members that Clark had repeatedly refused to follow House policy, which states that all members and staff be tested for the coronavirus twice a week. And I think it's something like Tuesday and Thursday, if I recall correctly.
That would make sense, because he was tossed out on a Tuesday.
Right. And Wednesday, he didn't show up.
Well, let's talk about his reasoning, because it was kind of all over the map.
Right.
It was a blend of, I don't want to be forced to do something, but it was, I don't want to be forced to do something without a basis for it because other people aren't getting 2 tests a week. Like, yeah, you're kind of blurring the lines here. But he said in a statement that he arrived at the chamber ready to follow the required protocols by wearing a mask, social distancing, and having his temperature taken. He said, but what I will not do is be forced to have a COVID test or any unnecessary medical test done without a basis for doing so. The seat that I hold for District 98 is not my seat, but the people's seat. I work for you, and I cannot in good conscience watch expensive tests that should be given to Georgia citizens who desperately need them be wasted for nothing more than political optics at the Capitol. I check my temperature when I come in. When I go in the chambers, I wear my mask. I follow the protocols they want in the chamber, but 2 tests a week is wrong on my conscience when teachers can't get it and first responders can't get it. We get 2 tests, but nobody else gets the same thing out there. My grandma doesn't get 2 tests.
He invoked the grandma card.
Yeah, that's better than the child card.
Yeah, so Grammy Clark is at risk because she can't get tested twice a week, but he has to.
And then, so, he's all over the map, and then David Ralston comes in with this, acting like he gives a rip about, he said this is about preventing the disease that has killed more than 12,000 Georgians. And I loved on Tuesday when he put out a statement, he's like, I've been to too many funerals and okay, why are you going to so many funerals? You're not supposed to be gathering, David. And then also he got choked up on Thursday, like choked back tears saying, that this is just, it's just everybody's losing friends and family. So we're going to keep that on the front burner. And he asked David Clark's family to get him help, which I thought was wrong.
Okay, Ralston can kiss our collective.
Well, hold on. We're all about the individual here. Let's not get all collective here.
He's going to choke back tears. This is the same guy that allows accused child molesters to walk free because he keeps them out of court.
100%.
So save that crap. I've been to too many funerals. Shut up. Well, it could be that you're older than dirt and the people around you are dropping like flies. It also could be that you have a geographically large district and everybody wants the speaker to come to their funeral. So shut up. Don't give me that. Don't try to take moral high ground. Anybody who knows you knows what you are. So don't, if you want to say he violated house rules that we've established to keep everybody safe and leave it at that, fine. But this emotional crap that somehow he's morally superior because he's going to let someone stick a swab up his nose twice a week. As far as I'm concerned, they can go with the new Chinese version twice a week, which is an anal swab.
Oh.
You hadn't heard about that one, huh?
Oh, I have. I just, appreciate you sharing.
Because no, that would be great. That'd be perfect for the lawmakers. Go ahead and bend over and take it in the rear like you give it to the damn taxpayers. And go ahead and get a 3-foot, 4-inch wide swab for them.
All right, Dave.
Assholes. No,
it's just I agree though. I mean, it's like the holier than thou, and I would, if I were David Clark, and I don't know what I would do in this situation, because it's, I don't know what he's winning out of this. But if I were going to step back, I would say, how much is this costing us? Like, why not take a fiscal approach?
Well, he started to go there with the fiscal approach.
Yeah, but true to form, he derailed.
Right. He started to go there, and then he shifted to, it's not fair. It's not that we should save this money or shouldn't spend this money, but this money would be better spent testing other people. First of all, it's the same argument people use with, why do teachers make so little and athletes make so much? Well, there's only so many professional athletes, and there are millions and millions of teachers. So the argument doesn't exactly work out. So the idea that every teacher should get it twice a week, no. And look, I agree. If you're showing some symptoms, if you show up with a slightly elevated fever, let's find out if it's you're fighting off a cold or it's COVID. Then you test them. And if they were really, really worried, they would bring the session down to 40 days, 5 day
everybody
weeks.
had to do all the meetings virtually.
Yep, all the meetings on Zoom, and they would all go in the bubble like the professional sports did, where they all take a bus to the same hotel. They are all sequestered. They don't have anybody. Then they all take the same bus back in the building, and it's a complete bubble. Nobody in, nobody out. No lobbyists. Oh, now that'd be a coup. No lobbyists. Everything is done virtually. You only show up to vote, and you knock out those 40 days in 2 months, and everybody goes home. But no, they're not actually serious about preventing it. They want the optics of, we get tested twice a week, so we're not the super spreaders here.
Mm-hmm.
And what the both of them did by getting into this little spat is the people of his district are unrepresented. They don't have a voice on the floor.
Well, David Ralston took his office away in the legislative building across the street.
Right. Because he's nothing if not petty.
Right.
And look, Clark and Ralston have not gotten along for a while.
Absolutely. I think Ralston pounced on the opportunity to make an example out of him.
Yeah.
And David Clark gave him the perfect opportunity to do it.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are no winners in this. Only losers.
Mm-hmm.
And look, if he wanted to, if you want the opportunity to voice it, you don't do it on Twitter. You don't do it I think I read his interview on Georgia Public Radio or Public Broadcasting, whatever it is, which I was one of 3 people who saw it. It said you do it from the well. You do it in the rules committee.
What do you mean?
You protest it. You protest the and you bring up the point. Or when you're talking about budgets, is you vote to remove the funding for having members tested twice a week. And I don't know what exposure you have between Tuesday and Thursday that's going to have you come up hot. And look, I know NFL teams have been doing multiple tests a week and things like that, but they're privately funded for it. A movement is being pushed in Georgia and around the country by the 10th Amendment Center, Defend the Guard Act, which is a 1-page piece of legislation as of right now.
It's being pushed by the 10th Amendment Center. And it's pushed by libertarians and small government conservatives like Young Americans for Liberty. I don't know if they officially have endorsed it, but a lot of the people who are involved. And basically it puts, I don't know if it's been adopted in any other states yet, but it puts the state back in control of the National Guard under certain circumstances. For particularly if they try to deploy the National Guard somewhere under acts of war when Congress had not declared war officially. That's been a point of contention since, 2002?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, but shortly after 9/11. Well, no, realize we had National Guard troops in every conflict we've ever had. So there were National Guard, people were drafted into the National Guard for World War II. You had guardsmen for Korea, Vietnam. We had guardsmen all through those conflicts. In fact, that was a lot of times if you were drafted, you did your 2 years, whatever the draft hitch was. It wasn't active duty. It was you were a guardsman, but you were deployed to in case of the 50s, Korea, or a reserve component or something like that. You weren't necessarily brought into the active duty, or people would join the Guard in a way of avoiding the draft and being stuck in active duty and still end up being deployed to Vietnam or to Korea, whichever time you had. So the governor shall withhold or withdraw approval of the transfer of the National Guard to federal control in the absence of a military invasion of the United States, an insurrection, or calling forth the Guard by the federal government in a manner provided by Congress to execute the laws of the Union, provided the said laws were made in pursuance with the delegated power of the Constitution of the United States. So this, and I'm sure this has been sitting in someone's back pocket, kind of waiting for a crisis to arise. This is all related to the troops ending up in D.C., as I would imagine, is what's bringing this to the forefront.
I'm pretty sure it started before that.
No, I'm sure it did, but this is what's really bringing it up, is these governors pulling their guardsmen back.
But they really want to have the authority to not send them overseas.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
It is interesting. I don't see it working, because part of the funding for the National Guard comes from the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the federal government gets around the 10th Amendment with a lot of stuff is with dollars. You'll do it our way, or we'll remove dollars. When they raised the drinking age from 18 to 21, well, the federal government can't do that. It's a state law. The way they did it was, if you want these highway funds, you'll fall in line with us. And there were some states that held out. I think Louisiana was one that held out for a long time. The same thing happened with No Child Left Behind. It's not within the purview of the federal government to tell the states how to educate their children, but they can withhold funds. So even if you pass this, who's going to what basic training are these guardsmen going to go to? Well, I mean, that if you look down at your breastplate there, it says U.S. Army. It doesn't say Georgia. It doesn't say Alabama. It doesn't say New York. It says U.S. Army, because the schools you go to are Army schools. Your basic training, your advanced training, airborne school, any other school that you go to. Now, there are state-run Guard schools, especially for retraining and things like that. But your Ranger school, and of course, I'm using Army examples because that's what I know. There is an Air National Guard, but the pilots of the Air National Guard, they're not trained by Georgia. It's not like Georgia runs its own flight school. These guys go to the same training that every other Air Force pilot goes to.
True.
So what they're kind of referencing, and I know I'm going to piss off a lot of libertarians who are strict libertarians, but this is going back to the militia of the 1800s, where the Guard was the militia, which was just an armed populace. So the federal government could not just tell the governor to raise his militia and send them off to fight in Canada. And it was in a time where we didn't keep a standing army, a very large standing army. And I'm not saying that the Constitution changed with time, as it shouldn't. the fundamentals that we founded the nation on. But the way the government controls the Guard, controls the states, is with the flow of cash. So this really, it may be a feel-good thing especially for liberal governors to say, well, we're not sending our troops to war. And that's where the federal government, the big army goes, oh yeah, well, we're not sending our dollars to you.
I don't know. I just wish that states would collectively stand up. Like, I understand that the federal but like at some point, it's just like with the budget. You know, our lawmakers tout a $26 billion budget, yet we get $26 billion from the federal government too, because it costs us $52 million to run the state. Like, people aren't aware that so much of what services, quote, are provided and things we can't afford. And it's on contingency basis and, you know, all, again, strings and rules. Maybe if people knew and it was the information was relayed honestly, maybe we'd stand a chance.
Do you think the average person has the bandwidth to understand it? Look, I've told you, even at a local level, I've been in these meetings, and of course, I'm just coming unglued when I hear the local guys talk about, well, this much is coming from the county, but we get this much in state, this much in federal funds. I'm like, you jackass, it's all my money. Just telling me it comes from a different pocket doesn't tell me it's not a waste of taxpayer funds. You know, we got so much for the state for this project and so much for the federal government for this project. Well, it's all the same money. So when people just don't have the bandwidth, all they hear is, oh, well, it won't affect my local taxes. Or this particular project is coming from state funds. Well, that's just magic. It just comes out of nowhere because that's state funds. And every community is guilty of it. Paulding County is guilty of it. We're getting an aviation academy at our very contentious airport. Thanks partly to Nathan Let's Make a Deal, and finished off luckily for Paulding County because we need to do something with it. But it's state and federal funds coming to put that together. So I don't know that's getting off on a hog trail, but you're right. That's exactly how the federal government controls the states and controls local government is with the purse strings.
I mean, it's definitely counterproductive, and it allows a lot to happen outside of the public view. And I think they would be more bothered if they really knew. Well,
and if the National Guard is not going to deploy, there'd be no reason to have infantry units or armor units in the National Guard. No reason at all. They would, if all they're going to respond to is unrest and natural disasters. If that's their purview, is that we're going to take care of us, and we may volunteer our folks for other states, like we obviously sent National Guard to Katrina and stuff like that. Then you really need more engineers, MPs, and medical than you need infantry units, and we do. We have out of Gwinnett or something like that. There's the Stryker Brigade, which is mechanized infantry. Well, why do we have it? Why do we need them? Well, we certainly don't need any cargo planes, because what are they doing? We need rescue helicopters. So the whole nature of the National Guard would have to change, because they're outside of an outright invasion, and we have a pretty big standing army. We don't need infantry in the National Guard. We don't need armored personnel carriers. We don't need tanks. In fact, you can just do away with the National Guard, use the Georgia Defense Force for that, because that's an organization that is wholly dedicated to helping in natural disasters. Non-armed, non-military, even though they wear a uniform, non-military aid in the case of emergency. I don't see it happening. I mean, it's a cute piece of information. It's a wonderful exercise in libertarian think tank, but I don't think this would actually change anything.
Maybe not, but I think it's a good conversation to have.
Oh, sure. Well, that's why you put it on there. And of course, I took what should be a good conversation and crapped all over it because I'm an asshole. Oh, Jessica, do you have any closing thoughts?
I just think one thing I want to mention, which is just ironic, I suppose, but Ossoff and Warnock, you can't really reach them right now. Their official pages haven't been set up. Their Senate contact pages haven't been set up. You can't message them on Twitter and things like that. And I think it's funny. I think it's super funny because as out of touch as David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler were, and they were right to be criticized and chastised for not being accessible, here we are. Same old crap.
So we have the extremes in Georgia. We have, would you please be somewhat accessible online to Marjorie Taylor Greene, we were all like, hey, could you dial it down? Could you communicate less? Because that'd be great. I don't really have a closing thought other than, again, congratulations on the new ventures. You've been very busy.
Thanks.
The COVID lockdown was good for your four-legged family.
Mm-hmm.
If you like what you heard, please share us on social media. Share us with your friends. If you don't like what you heard, don't suffer alone. Misery loves company. We will put a link to Jessica's new ventures, the book and the Georgia Virtue, and please go ahead and give it a like. It's all the same great content that you've been enjoying the last few years, just with a new name. So, for Jessica Szilagyi, for Eric Cumby, our editor, I'm Dave Roberts. Have a great week.